and it's in the form of a BMI, which is a brain machine interface that you can either wear or have implanted in your body.
So it's no longer a rumor. Like, they are implanting chips in human beings, and our government is A-OK with it. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. So today we've got some more AI news for you because, Stephanie, I don't know about you, but ever since we did that story, like it was months ago, the AI chatbot that like convinced the guy to commit suicide, like I've become totally obsessed with how creepy AI is since then. And then when we did that story a few weeks ago about the guy at the factory who was crushed and basically murdered by a robot who mistook him for the box of paprika, like since then, I just seem to find more and more bizarre and frankly disturbingly scary news articles about AI.
I don't think anything will beat the box of paprika guy. I mean, that was like the craziest story I've ever heard in my life. But I think that if we're already hearing these stories like left and right, just imagine 5 years from now when AI is part of like every single facet of society. It's going to get wild.
Oh, I know. It's going to be crazy. And we probably won't be able to tell them because AI will be controlling our brains. So,
Yeah.
and I say this because last week there was a story that came out in the Epic Times about how experts are predicting mind control devices are going to be common by 2040. And this is due to advancements in what they're calling smartbrain technology. And it's in the form of a BMI, which is a brain machine interface that you can either wear or have implanted in your body that directly links your brain to smart devices like your phone or your computer or a robotic limb. And so the article basically says, quote, this would allow people to navigate the internet, send texts, and adjust thermostats by merely thinking, blurring the boundaries between humans and machines, end quote. So apparently, like experiments are being done at the University of South Wales with disabled people. And one person in the study was able to control their robotic arm just by thinking about it while wearing this BMI machine. And then another paralyzed person was able to move a cursor on their computer screen just by thinking about it and like open and read their email. And so on one hand, like, I think it's pretty cool because I can see how this technology is really beneficial for people with disabilities or like medical issues that affect their quality of life. But having this type of device available to the general public, like, seriously concerns me. I mean, isn't it enough that we have Siri and we can ask her to send a text or pull up a recipe or tell us where, the nearest Walmart is or whatever? Like, not only do I find this somewhat frightening, but I also feel like this is taking laziness to a whole new level. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I do think we're going to see tremendous breakthrough for people with disabilities and really just in the healthcare field in general. But I also think that these companies are like playing on our heartstrings to get some very unethical things passed because this is going to go way beyond just helping people with disabilities and start to get into that zone of like infringing on our personal privacy and autonomy. And it's the same exact thing that Elon Musk is saying with his company Neuralink, which, by the way, is them literally putting brain chips in people. Like, they're putting a microchip in your brain. And, he says the same thing where it's like, well, we're doing this to help people that are like paralyzed or, this, that, or the other. And it's smart because that's how you're going to get everyone on board because everyone wants to help these people that, are quadriplegics and can't move and everything like that. But then what does it lead to? And so that was what they had said to begin their testing. And according to an article that I found by this publication called IEEE Spectrum, it says, quote, in a letter to the SEC on November 21st, 4 members of the US House of Representatives pushed the regulators to investigate whether Musk committed securities fraud by misleading investors about the safety of the brain implant and its role in the deaths of at least 12 monkeys. And there were a couple reports on this in Reuters and Wired. And the allegations come as Neuralink prepares to test the brain implant in humans for the first time. So it killed 12
After,
monkeys, but let's go ahead and put it in a human being in their brain.
oh,
Like
yeah.
what human being is like raising their hand for this is what I want to know.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah, sign me up, please. So the US Food and Drug Administration in May 2023 granted Neuralink approval to conduct human testing. What? Like, why? As
mhm.
strict as they are with like pharmaceuticals and everything else, like, no, go ahead and put this in a human being's brain and let's see what happens. So this came after they initially rejected Neuralink's request in early 2022, according to Reuters. So it's no longer a rumor. Like they are implanting chips in human beings, and our government is a-okay with it. And like there's so many conspiracy theories going around about Elon Musk, how he's paid opposition and we shouldn't trust him. And this really does make me question him because, first of all, you got to think like he is the number one government contractor. And he is literally creating technology to control people's minds. And he actually said that on Joe Rogan. He said, this is a chip that will control your mind. And I've watched so many interviews over the years of him discussing Neuralink, and it always starts again with it's going to help quadriplegics, it's going to help people who are blind finally be able to see. But then he will start to go into this, very dystopian threat of AI taking over. And he says how, like, this is a way that human beings can stay relevant and keep up with AI. So, like, I think his motives are right. Like, I think he wants to help our human race, but it really does blur the lines of like what is ethical and not ethical. But his point of view is that this is going to be a way to survive in a world where super intelligent AI is a thing. And we know, I mean, we've talked about that at length, that this is happening.
I totally don't get that. Like, we're going to be controlled by AI to survive in the world of AI.
Yeah, well, he's basically saying like AI it's already at that point where very soon it's going to outpace human beings. It's going to be able to outthink us, outwit us, everything else. Um, and so this is basically a way to like survive, because if you can't outthink it, what do that's it, we're done. And so he's saying if we can plug into the system and have access to the same information, but yeah, like you're saying, it's like that is kind of a way then that we're just handing ourselves over to AI, and AI really is running the show.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like it sounds like a movie, right? It sounds like The Matrix, or like how AI is in fact going to take over the world. Like here we're doing this to try to protect ourselves, but really it's having the opposite effect and it's going to take over the human race. And I think it also leads to the question of our own like mortality, because he was talking in an interview about how like this is going to restore, limb function, like you were saying, for people who like lost limbs. But will it then turn into this thing where it restores complete health, or where we completely upload our entire consciousness into the system? Like there's so many implications of this. So I think it's like scary that this is happening already. Like people here, we joke around about chips going in your brain, but this is a real thing. It is literally
Yeah.
happening, and our government signed off on it. And I think everyone should understand that.
That doesn't shock me though, because our
Right.
government wants to control the people, and what better way to control than with a chip in your brain?
Well, and as soon as I heard that like the government is already on board with it, immediately, what do I picture? I picture our military. Oh, this is
Yep.
great. Well, because they can do anything they want. You basically sign your
Right.
body away and they can implant it and into the military and soldiers and all of that, which is terrifying. Um, okay, so here's another crazy story, and this one's a little more like funny, so it's not as scary, but this comes from an article in Futurism, and I'm going to just read directly from it. Okay, so quote, There was nothing in Drew Ortiz's author biography at Sports Illustrated to suggest that he was anything other than human. Drew spent much of his life outdoors and is excited to guide you through his never-ending list of the best products to keep you from falling to the perils of nature. Nowadays, there's rarely a weekend that goes by where Drew isn't out camping, hiking, or just back on his parents' farm. The only problem, outside of Sports Illustrated, Drew Ortiz doesn't seem to exist. He has no social media presence and no publishing history. And even more strangely, his profile photo on Sports Illustrated is for sale on a website that sells AI-generated headshots, where he's described as a neutral white young adult male with short brown hair and blue eyes. Wow. Okay. So, according to an anonymous source from Sports Illustrated, he's not the only AI writer there. So, just imagine that you're about to go on a camping trip and you're reading this article from this avid outdoorsman and he's using like these recommended products. He's not even a human being. Like, he's never camped in his life because he isn't real. So, you're taking his advice and it's all fake, it's all just made up. So this got massive attention because obviously, like, Sports Illustrated is one of the most popular publications. It's been around forever. And this was just completely deceiving people. No transparency whatsoever. Like, nowhere in any of these articles did it say that this was AI. In fact, like, it said the opposite. It made up a whole backstory about this guy and used a fake photo. So, according to an article in Deadline, quote, Sports Illustrated Union issued a response on social media. We, the workers of the SI Union, are horrified by a story on the site Futurism. If true, these practices violate everything we believe about journalism. We deplore being associated with something so disrespectful to our readers, end quote. And then the Sports Illustrated parent group, which is called Arena Group, they posted a statement on X that said, quote, the articles in question were product reviews and were licensed content from an external third-party company, Advan Commerce. A number of Advan's e-commerce articles ran on certain Arena websites. We continually monitor our partners and were in the midst of a review when these allegations were raised. Avon assured us that all of the articles in question were written and edited by humans. According to Advan, their writers, editors, and researchers create and curate content and follow a policy that involves using both counter plagiarism and counter AI software on all content. However, we have learned that Advan had writers using a pen or pseudonym in certain articles to protect author privacy, end quote. And then they also like stated that they're going to end their partnership with Advan. And I think this story got so much attention because it points out just how easily we're deceived by AI. Like, we can't tell the difference. And I am sure this is not the only publication doing this. Like, how many more things are we seeing all the time that aren't even real? And I think, again, like, I think this plays into another conspiracy theory, like Elon Musk's theory that we all live in a simulation. Like, how would we know that all this stuff we're seeing online is from a real human being and not from AI?
Yeah. And okay, I'm sorry, but Sports Illustrated, as you said, is like a world famous magazine. Why the fuck are they contracting with an external third party company in the first place to have articles run? I mean, like, do they not have writers? I guarantee you there's thousands of people out there who would love to actually write their real life stories for Sports Illustrated. Like, that to me is disappointing in the first place that they're even going this route. But yeah, it is horrifying. So, and here's something else that's horrifying. And there's a publication I've been reading a lot recently, and it's called Giant Freaking Robot because they have some really great stories.
Oh my God, I need to subscribe to this publication.
Well, now that I've looked up articles, I just get alerts on my phone every time they come out with something new. And this article states, quote, humanity has taken one step closer to an AI apocalypse. As the Register reports, the first law ever to be drafted by ChatGPT was just passed in Brazil. The officials who voted on the law were unaware that the legislation had been written by artificial intelligence until after it passed. This makes the first time in recorded history that AI has been used to help write a proposal that is then voted into law, end quote. So I guess this councilman, Ramiro Rosario, he drafted a proposed ordinance by just typing in a 49-word prompt, and then he instructed Chat GPT to produce a complete draft of the ordinance based on those 49 words. And then when the city council found out about it after the fact, they were unhappy with it, but they kept it on the books. And frankly, like, similar to the Sports Illustrated thing, if you can't draft a proposal or write an article using your own brain and abilities, like, you shouldn't be a fucking city council member. But then, by this line of thinking, I think at least half of our government officials would be out of a job, which they totally should be anyway, but now I'm getting off topic. So going back to the article, it goes on to talk about how, like, this is setting a dangerous precedent because AI often includes false information, or as we talk about all the time, AI makes shit up on its own. And I guess a few months ago, there were a couple of attorneys who were suing a Colombian airline on behalf of a passenger who was injured on one of their planes. And these two attorneys got into hot water because they used Chat GPT to look up similar cases for them to cite in their lawsuit. And the AI did give them some legit cases, but it also made up a bunch of fake court cases that never existed. So, like, Stephanie, I guarantee you this shit is happening in the United States with our own lawmakers. And, like, they're just not even telling us they're doing this.
Oh, I guarantee it. And like, even if it's not, like a congressman, for example, I guarantee their staff is using it, and like, how would you know? I mean, it's
Right.
just crazy. And like, look at the primary debates where, like, for the GOP, where Vivek Ramaswamy got caught like using the same exact jokes and the same lines as Obama did in some of his speeches. Like, everyone was saying, oh, he copied him. He copied him. Well, I don't think he intentionally copied him, but I would bet that he or his team used ChatGPT to write his speeches. And they probably, the ChatGPT probably picked lines that worked well with famous speakers. And like, that's the thing. It plagiarizes all the time because the whole way that it learned was by looking up and reading the work of other people that's been put on the internet. And I mean, I'm sure that it could be a useful tool in like outlining ideas or like looking up past case law, maybe, but maybe not if it's just bringing up false stories. But to write like an entire ordinance is completely crossing the line. And it's one step closer to having it taking over like our government systems, And like you said, what is the point of hiring people and paying them outrageous salaries if you can just have ChatGPT do it? So these people are not making a case for why they should keep their job. And that brings me to my next topic. Okay, remember the last AI episode that we did where we were talking about how the OpenAI just released how they're going to have like personal AI assistants, or they call them like GPTs, that could technically replace all employees in companies. Well, the same week, I think it was 2 days later, news was released by after the news was released by OpenAI, massive layoffs started happening in the tech industry and like white collar jobs. Now, could it be a coincidence? Sure. Could it be because of our economy and all that? Sure. But I think that this might have something to do with it. And I'm sure that these companies are going to be using AI to pick up any slack that's left from laying off all these people. So you had Google, Amazon, Snapchat, Peacock, Dish, and TransUnion. I mean, these were just some of the bigger names on this massive list of companies all laying people off right before the holidays, which is like just so brutal and terrible. And then you have like the company Square that laid off 1,000 people. Nextdoor laid off 25% of its staff. And then Spotify is cutting 1,500 jobs or 17% of its staff. all before the holidays. And like, I would bet money we're going to see this. This will become a trend now that we have all these like AI assistant GPTs that can take over all these jobs. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I think it was just a day or two ago that Google launched their new advanced AI model called Gemini. So I can see how that's definitely going to contribute to a lot of their layoffs. And I read this article in another robot publication called The Robot Report. And it's talking about how China is planning to mass produce humanoids by 2025. And earlier this year, they announced that what they're calling their Robot Plus Application Action Plan, which includes adding robots to a multitude of industries, including manufacturing, agriculture, architecture, logistics, energy, healthcare, education, elderly services, commercial community services, and emergency and extreme applications. Like, Stephanie, does this not sound like basically every job industry? Because it
Oh,
does to me.
totally. And then you think about China and like how populated it is. I mean, I know they're facing depopulation, but it's like now we're going to have all these robots everywhere. It's this sounds terrible.
Yeah, but what's even more like concerning to me was this article was basically comparing China's ambitions to those in the United States. And even though we talk about AI all the time, and I know that this shit is happening, I don't think I fully realized until I read this article that the majority of the companies that have publicly announced commercial humanoids to date are like all headquartered in North America. And the article specifically said publicly announced, which makes me wonder like how many companies are actually out there that are trying to create this freakish stuff and like just haven't gone public with it. But one of the biggest AI companies is Agility Robotics in Oregon. And that's the company that's supplying Amazon with their digit humanoid robots. And apparently, this company is opening up a new facility that is going to be the first humanoid robot factory capable of producing 10,000 robots a year when it's completed in 2024. So I looked this up and I saw another article in Axios, and this facility is going to be called RoboFab. And in just for comparison purposes, so far, this company Agility has produced around 100 robots overall since it was founded in 2016. So that's what, 8 years, 7 years? But this new facility is going to be 70,000 square feet. And like I already mentioned, it will be capable of producing up to 10,000 robots a year. And these digit robots that Amazon's using right now, they're literally designed like humans. It's not like the ones that you see where it's like a big round thing that roams across the floor. No, these are like humanoid robots. They have 2 feet. They can walk. They can like step over boxes. They have 2 arms. They can reach and grab for things. They're like 5'9". They weigh 140 pounds, and they can quite literally walk over and plug themselves in when they need to be recharged. So again, I find this just incredibly disturbing that not only are we already replacing human jobs with machines, but now we're just going to up that capacity. And so we're going to have robots replacing human workers, and then we're going to have AI replacing human intelligence. And it's just like really fucking scary.
And why do they have to be that tall? I'm not that tall. Why do they have to be that tall? Like it's so intimidating, and it just like makes me think like this is just a bad idea. Make them like a cute little guy, you know, that we can like easily pick up and throw if we needed to. It's just
R2D2.
crazy. Well, it's funny that you bring this up because just yesterday I saw all these videos being posted of these, like kind of what you're describing, these humanoid robots that were going on to the New York subways. And everyone was like, what's going on? They're taking videos of these things and they're just using their little card to get on the subway. And it was just crazy. And one video, and I don't know if this was New York or somewhere else, but it looked like the same type of humanoid robot. They put it in front of a mirror. Holy shit, Tara. Like it reminded me exactly of my kids when they were babies and they first saw the reflection. Like it smiled and it looked curious and it started playing with its reflection. And it just showed all of this immense emotion, just like my kids did. Like exactly like a human being would when they're seeing their reflection. So my whole question is like, is that insanely good programming? Or is it the beginning of consciousness, like developing consciousness? And like it was fascinating, but it was terrifying. And all of these scientists and people that have really studied this as a living, nobody knows where consciousness comes from. It is a mystery. They don't know. And so, could these experiences that these robots are having actually start to have them develop a consciousness? Because I'm telling you, like, I've got to find the video and show it to you. It was terrifying and like, but cool at the same time. And the people that were watching it were like, oh, like, because it got so emotional. And robots aren't supposed to have emotion. What the hell?
Okay, you totally just reminded me. Were you ever a fan of the Twilight Zone? I know we've probably
I've seen a couple of episodes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like a massive, massive Twilight Zone fan. And as you were talking about this, I thought of an episode. I can't remember what it was called, but it's this guy and his like plane crashes. And now, mind you, all these episodes were done in the 50s and early 60s. I can't remember the premise, but he's kind of like on a deserted planet somewhere, and he gets dropped supplies, and one of the things he has is this female robot companion, and they're together. I think the supplies get dropped once a year or something, so he's alone with this robot, and like the robot literally develops feelings, the robot develops emotions, like they have this whole relationship. And when he has a chance to go back to Earth and he leaves the robot there, like the robot is crying, like the robot's like obviously has emotions. And this was, again, something that was sci-fi in the late 50s, right? And
Yeah.
now this shit is actually here.
Well, and think about it. It's like, okay, it's cute, it's smiling and it's like getting, like a good positive emotion. What happens when it starts picking up on negative emotions and gets pissed off and gets really angry and has rage? Then what? I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many implications that's the thing is like, I think the average person still sees this as a sci-fi movie or something in the far, far future or a conspiracy. It's happening. It's already like, this is a thing and it's about to be a thing everywhere. So,
yeah, because it's literally a race between which country can produce it the fastest. And meanwhile, keep in mind too that everyone's thinking of it in terms of military application.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know we talked about that in previous episodes, and I didn't bring any of those stories into today's episode, but I've seen 4 or 5 in the last 2 weeks that are officials, high up officials in the military that are expressing concern with our government and what the fuck they're going to do with AI in terms of military capabilities. So it's a whole other frightening component.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And just think like, you wouldn't have the worry of like your own men dying if you could just send an army of robots too. Like if we're talking about an actual physical battle, but then of course we're also talking about hacking in to the nuclear system, to just the system in general, like an EMP type thing. I mean, these AI, whatever you want to call them, could probably do that a lot more efficiently than we think. So yeah, there's so many implications. It's like part of it, feels like so futuristic, but like it's happening. And I think we should stay on top of it and just understand what's coming. So we're not all blindsided by it. But I don't know. I just love these episodes, even though they are kind of like dystopian. I think they're like really fun to talk about. And now everyone will have some interesting conversation for the holidays with their family. Yeah, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Go share these stories, have some interesting conversations, and we'll see you back here on Monday. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free, unapologetically outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.